Do you see that sign up?
Yep.
It says reserved for the Target Park, so they all sit over there.
I did, but I was in here before, so let's.
This is the Rickard dining room, right?
Oh, okay. I don't work the site.
Rickard.
It does.
Did it say roasted?
How are you
before?
doing?
The whole building is the Rossi.
McKee and Rickard, I think are the names.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
in.
Who knows? How are you doing today? Good.
Morning.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah, I think so, but.
Okay. It's gonna be by where, the entrance, where the lady's standing to scan. Okay.
Julie was gonna see if there was anybody else, you know, coming lost or.
That looks like a team purchase.
Go.
It wasn't, but I got it at where you've been, so.
It might be a small group because a lot of them are online, so.
Yeah, a lot of the, third years in internship, they're attending online today.
Yeah, I can bring any of those still.
No, I can go get some though at the break. Let's see if this is working.
You need to check anything?
Let's see.
How's your husband doing?
Better,
Good.
much better. So he went to work today. Yeah, he's doing better. I appreciate you asking.
See.
He healed up just enough in time for us to go. But he slept a lot. He took a lot of
You
naps.
just want to cruise? Where?
It went to Nassau and Copenhagen.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a short 3-day one. But he, yeah, he was just on the edge.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, okay, we can do it. He let me drive home and he slept because he was still taking his,
Okay.
rest of the antibiotics. So he took it and then he was like, no, you're not driving. I was like, let me drive. It was hard for him. Just like, "God."
Literally to give up the wheel.
Yes. So I got to drive most of the way home. Listen to my podcast. and I slept.
Is this a eating lunch type of orientation?
It will be, yep. Yes,
Not yet, though.
no, not yet.
Okay.
There's a break.
That we can get for that.
Looks like there's a slight delay. Okay, this is the live stream. This looks working. Start
So you're
sitting. this-
broadcasting through Zoom to.
Yeah, so that I can do this, the video.
When did Plan start back?
They started last week.
Last-
Yeah. Yeah, they've been already for a week or so. Boys were back at Westwood. 3 days. Yeah, the last one to go back to work. And, well, we had like, it's like a month off, right? So.
I got about 60% of my to-do list done.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So, yeah, not so bad.
Ryan, can you hear me through the live stream? Welcome, everyone. We'll start in just a minute. If you want to start by scanning this QR code, we can get you signed in. All right, audio is working.
Do you have a way to track questions from online people?
Yeah, I have that right here.
Okay. For the site, you need help with that.
Actually, you can go to the grad page.
What's that?
It's
Is Larry
YouTube.
coming?
the grad counseling page.
Oh, okay.
And you should be able to see the chat there too. is a good test, because this is, we're gonna figure out for February 9th too.
This one here, spring 2024.
Yep. So it should be live.
It is, I could just hear it say it's.
Okay, Larry's on the
So
line.
it's a slight delay.
That's so good. If there's a program malfunction or whatever.
A wardrobe
Yeah,
malfunction.
wardrobe malfunction. There you go.
All right, we'll begin.
Let me see what we have here now. Three more.
We will become in just a minute.
You ready?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is Larry coming or is he on the live stream?
Larry's on the way if you want to wait a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Welcome, Macy. So both in the live stream and here, just scan this QR code to sign in so we can track attendance. That's for our accreditation process. If you're watching this through your phone, I don't know how you scan it. We can send
Yeah.
out, I'll send out the link after on the live stream, right?
find a friend,
Find it.
have them pull up the QR code and then use your camera.
Unless you're watching it on your.
I got
computer.
locked out of my iPad that I haven't used in like 5 years. And I couldn't remember my Apple ID because I'm smart and have Android. And
Always the Android people have need to make a dig against Apple.
well, so this is why. So it says my iPad is disabled. I have to log into iTunes to enable my iPad, but I can't get my Apple ID password because they were going to send it to my iPad.
Exactly.
And so I can find anyone with an iPhone to authorize access, but it has to be an iPhone. And so I used
You don't have any friends?
I used my son's iPhone to authorize. And they said they will send me my password by February 11th.
Wow.
I was like, is this just like public chastisement because I didn't
Yes.
know my password?
Because you don't love Jesus enough to have.
If it was my phone, I would have to wait a month to log into my phone because it's the craziest thing. I've never heard of that before.
Like technological shaming.
Like password reset is usually like that, right? No, Apple is 3.5 weeks. You
Yeah.
wait 3.5 weeks to get an Apple, to get a password reset. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I've never heard that before. They're doing something special with you.
Because it was like too many, my son was playing with it, too many passwords.
Well, no, I've gone through that. We had the ones at ACC we used for the music
Yeah, yeah.
industry. We used iPads for all of us. And we didn't use them for a while, and so they were all locked out. But there is a process, same thing, where we finally found, and they were able to send it to the device, and we were able to unlock them all. I don't know why they're mailing it to you. That I've literally never heard that before.
They're literally sending a snail.
Like,
It's like a snail with the password like
Message on
wrapped
that.
up inside it.
And they screenshot it,
Okay.
go to options, search Google Lens.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They could go to website.
Okay. All right, so if on the live stream, if you screenshot the QR code, you can then go to options in Google Lens and it'll pull up the website.
And I just handed out some resources
So go on,
for, okay. I handed out these resources for students who are new, especially. This is through Cindy Snell, who's at the library, and she's very welcoming. And if you want to reach out to her, it's Cynthia.Snell, SNELL@CIU.edu. And she will help you if you have questions about doing any kind of research or looking anything up. So be sure to reach out if you need anything. It talks about all the different kind of resources we have as you're getting into research classes or doing different papers and things. This will give you access to stuff. And just understand that the library loves to help you. So if you, and I see Macy shaking her head, they will help you. If you're like, I'm trying to find this thing or I need this resource, they're a great place. And so even if you're online, reach out to them. They'll set up an online appointment with you and help you find stuff. So make sure you make use of the resources. Along that line, there's also tutoring services available. And we often have people who are in this program or graduating from this program who end up being tutors, and they can help you with writing or papers, things like that, just things that you might need help with. Now, don't wait until a paper's due and say, hey, I've got an hour before I have to turn this in, can you check it? That's not gonna help. But if you schedule, like maybe even after you get a paper back, and maybe you don't make the grade you want, they'll talk you through what might need to, be worked on in your writing. So make sure you make use of those resources. Dr. Wagner should be here in just a minute, and we'll go ahead and introduce, and we may just go ahead and get started and do that, because I know we're short on time. And I want to make sure you have time to ask questions, get your questions answered. So, do we want to do the student introductions or just skip the faculty? What would you rather do?
We can do student introductions while we're waiting for Larry.
Okay. All right, so if you don't mind, we'll just put you on the spot. Lisa saw a lot of people, but tell us who you are, kind of where you went to undergrad, what you're kind of hoping to do as a counselor, just anything else that you think we should know about you. Okay? We'll start over there, Macy. While your mouth's full, so.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Basically, I kind of forgot what you said to like introduce, but
Whatever you want to tell us.
I'm from Greenville, South Carolina. I went to undergrad here and just graduated in December. I'm on the softball team here. I'm still currently playing softball. Is there anything else?
Is there anything else that you think we should know about you? Okay. And you brought your friend with you.
Yeah, this is my teammate. She, none of our other teammates are eating, so I told her just come eat with me, so.
Perfect. Okay, who's next? Danny?
Yeah, I'm Danny. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I recently moved from, I guess not recently, it's been almost a year. Most recently from San Diego, California. I live near Inda Coffee Shop. Never been there. Kind of where I'm at. There's anything else. I have a dog that I'm in love with. One of those people. She doesn't sleep in my bed, but she's my best friend. She can be here. So yeah, that's my biggest shame with schools. I'm not a dog anymore. I'm interested in gender identity counseling. But that's huge. Just something I'm interested in.
Great.
From China, just arrived 3 days ago.
Oh, wow.
So if I fall asleep, they gave me.
Yeah, it's nighttime there, right?
Yeah. I actually did my master like 10 years ago in electrical engineering. The board lead here, so LC was. It's really nice to meet them. Nice to meet you.
So it's similar, electrical engineering and counseling, it's, you know.
Yeah.
Just follow the schematics.
Yeah. Mhm.
Really?
Yeah,
I'm Amanda. I live in Sumter, South Carolina. I have 2 boys. One is 2.5, the other one's 9 months. They're great. I also have a dog named Sky and a husband. He's the least, but I went to Gardner Webb University for my undergrad, studied psychology. I've known I've wanted to do this for a while, but after having the second kid, what's a better time?
Because you have nothing to do, right?
School, right? So, excited to see where the Lord takes all of this. So, here for the
I'm Michael Coleman. I'm a retired Army officer, Army chaplain. And we live here in the Columbia area. We retired here to Lake Murray and bought a little house there. I did my undergraduate work at Wake Forest University. I did my first master's, Master of Divinity at Campbell University in North Carolina. And then through the Army did most of my DMin doctorate ministry at Erskine Seminary, and retired and decided that you know, this was the direction I wanted to go. So glad to be here.
Okay.
great. All right,
Okay.
we'll go into the faculty ones in a minute because we have pictures, I think, but
Okay.
oh, there's that.
Those were the questions. There you go.
I knew they were in there. I should have advanced further.
I'm Dr. Glenda Nana. That's my gorgeous husband there. My 8 kids, 4 biological, 4 from China. So, the oldest of the younger 4 is now in college, learning to fly. And the second one's a senior, and she's off on a Windrum mission trip right now. And, then we have, I think it's 12 grandkids. I keep getting it wrong. They keep changing numbers, but that's a lot of fun. I mostly teach kind of the beginning class on clinical mental health counseling, ethics, and I do some of the supervision for the internship classes and kind of oversee the program. So if you have questions or issues or problems, come and see me and we'll talk about it. So we're really glad you're here. We are always excited to see who God brings to us from all over with all different kinds of backgrounds and how God just kind of weaves that into a really cool discussion in a good group. And in a little bit, you'll see the returning students will be coming in. You'll get to know them a little bit too. So they may be trickling in as we talk. So Larry?
Larry Wagner, good to see you all. I've already had in class, most of you. So we've already get started. My wife Sue is a graduate in counseling program. And so we do some co-therapy, we do some couples retreats and that type of thing. And that's always fun. That was one of our dreams when we got married, that we'd be able to work together and help couples. And that's kind of our sweet spot. And we really feel that's leading us. My daughter Diana is a wonderful story of God's provision. very creative artist. We've got a master's at SCAD, Savannah College of Art Design and Illustration. And as you know, if you have artist friends, you think, okay, the dad thing, what are you gonna do with your degree? How are you gonna live? You've got a room above the garage, but you never had it on your own place, so. Turns out she was able to, by God's grace, find a job with the federal government in the Department of the Interior as an illustrator. How does that happen? I don't know, but she's in Boise, Idaho, loving it, so great. She's already done several projects commissioned by Boise Art to do murals, and right now she's doing a design for a mental health in Boise program. So she's in a sweet spot, she loves me back here. My son, Ben, and his wife Lori, surprised us this Christmas with news that he'll be a grandfather for the first time. And thrilled about that. Ben is the emergency room physician of Greenville. Or real estate. So they are putting on very hard for the rest. Finishing my 20th year here, spring, and hopefully we'll have a chance to talk and spiritual formation. And this is each of you guys. I'm looking forward to that.
All right, try to step for the camera. I'm Dr. Scott, so you'll have me for psychopathology, as well as research in the fall, which everyone is always thrilled to take. I am the director of the PhD program, so you can just continue to persist through the master's and start the PhD in health education supervision. This is my 5th year at CIU. This is my family. My son Caleb is 14. My daughter Susie's 16, both in high school at Ben Lippen. They're at wind term. Susie's in Queens, New York right now for her wind term. It's snowing there, so she's excited about that. We lived in Iowa for 7 years though, so snow is fun to experience on a short trip. Not the 24 inches that you got this past week. And then my son's doing woodworking this week for school. My wife Jen is a full-time potter. So you'll see me unashamedly promote handmade pottery. That's my wife's business. And we live right next door. So we have tried to do events and fun things. I just built a 10-foot by 4-foot dining room table yesterday. So we do board games, things. We have lots of space to have people over for board games. All right, Ben.
Oh. My name is Dr. Matthew. I'm going on my 7th month here at CIU. So all that to say, I am relatively new, but very excited to be here. I have about 20 years in higher education. I was at another college before that, but I'm really excited to be part of what God's doing here in both the MA and the PhD program as well. That's my beautiful wife, Jenna, over there. She is actually an educator over at Ben Lippen, our sister organization, where I've got 2 daughters, one in 6th grade, one in 8th grade, Olivia and Ainsley. And then I got 2 boys in Westwood High School up in the Blythewood area who are sophomore and junior. And so we're trying to get through everything, and we got our dog that's keeping us busy. He's hoping to be part of the PhD program with Dr. Scott and everybody else possible there as well. So, but I teach this semester is the Applied Clinical Foundations of Counseling and Counseling Theories. But my areas in particular I really engage with are multicultural counseling and human sexuality. In those areas particularly that really engage my research. So excited to get to know you all and be part of what God's doing here with you at CIU.
Right here, yeah. There you go.
Everyone, I am Dr. Jennifer Gibson. This is my first full-time year teaching at CIU. I was a visiting professor last year, and then I've done about 2 years of adjunct work here. I graduated from the counseling program. I did undergrad here as well, so long history with CIU. So, me and my husband here in these pictures, we were in Alaska for that picture, and that was, I think, one of our anniversary pictures. We are hitting 10 years this year, so yay. I don't have a picture of my dog, but I absolutely love my dog. I left him while I went on vacation this past week, and it was really hard. But so I definitely can understand and identify with that. I've got a picture over here with me and my husband's family. His mom is sitting down there and she's a firecracker. Absolutely love her. And his sister and her husband and our nephew. And then those are some students I kind of sort of adopted, but really they're students. They've graduated. They've gone off to do amazing things in the field. And then Dr. Johnson is in there with us. But I teach this semester multicultural counseling, the online and in person. So if you're taking it this semester, you will have me. I'm also teaching assessments and then internship too this semester. I also teach a techniques class, which is a real favorite of mine so far. It was a lot of fun teaching it, internship 1, and then I'll teach practicum in the summer. And so along with Dr. Matthew, I love multicultural counseling and working and looking at different populations. I've worked for my career in community mental health. So I've worked with a lot of clients from a lot of different backgrounds, but working with like lower socioeconomic individuals who really don't have a lot of resources. But I've done rural, suburban, and inner city. So it's been fun, did a lot of crisis work. So I like to bring all that into the techniques class as well and have a good time. So it's so nice to have you guys and everyone online there.
All right, and a person that you'll interact with quite a bit is Julie Warren. She's over here. She's our educational assistant. She deals with all the practicum sites and internship pieces for placement. So if you're in this area, like those in this room, we have lots of great connections for internship and practicum sites. And she'll help you make those connections. If you're outside of this area, she helps coordinate to find sites and locations for you. But she's the person that kind of keeps us all organized and sets up things like this orientation. And so really, if you have questions around program related things, you can contact her or your advisor. She's a great person to have around. Charlie is not in here. Charlie is what we consider our counselor in residence. And so he's, I don't know how many, probably 40 years, 35 years, a long time as a counselor, served in a variety of different roles. He's an expert in emotionally focused therapy, and he provides kind of support, encouragement for our students during the techniques process. If you need additional support and training in techniques or through supervision, he's that go-to person. He's also one of the licensed counselors that provides counseling for our students on campus. And then we have a variety of adjunct faculty you'll be interacting with. Lauren Blanding will be teaching the theories class online, 5310. You'll have her for that. Dr. Johnson is the director of the addictions program. And so some of our electives are in addictions that you may have him for. Teresa Melvin is one of our PhD students, actually, but she teaches the theories of addictions course online. The addictions classes are 8-week courses. So if you run it, really dive in the electives, they go pretty quick. And then Rochelle Dunn, Dr. Dunn is joining us this semester to teach the assessments class online. So those of you online, you may have her or you may have her next year. Some of our seminary faculty are Dr. Rabin is our assistant dean. She helps keep the schedules organized. Dr. Croto, which may be coming. Yeah, we'll be here in a few minutes. He's the dean and he helps kind of promote and advocate for us as a program across the university. And then Kelly LeGrand is his assistant. So that's who we go to as faculty when we have questions or problems, along with Hope Chenault. So here's a quick overview of our program, just so you kind of understand how the program works. The idea of CIU is that we have these 5 core values. And even as you walk around campus, you'll see these giant rocks on campus. They were put here in the mid-90s to represent our core values. And the 5 core values you see here are the authority of Scripture, victorious Christian living, world evangelization, prayer and faith, and evangelical unity. They're all critical. In the field of counseling, though, I really like the grounding of the authority of scripture because it means that our function in life recognizes that the Bible matters, that what the Bible says is true and has a claim over how we live in life, how we interact, how we function, which is critical in this world today. Right? We have big T truth. We know what is real, we know what is objective, and we can operate from that objective standard. Victorious Christian living can have some tension with counseling in that some people hold victorious Christian living as the idea that you can live in perfection, live sinless. We would frame victorious Christian living as growing in demonstration of the fruit of the gospel, often through the midst of suffering. Right? God tends to use suffering as the means of the redemptive work in conformity to Christ in our lives, and that's not at odds with victorious Christian living. Right? So suffering and fruit go hand in hand. World evangelization as a program, we seek to be excellent in a biblical authority lens, but also have a means for demonstrating the gospel in our lives, sometimes explicitly in the work that we do, but often implicitly in the work that we do as ethically licensed people. And then prayer and faith is kind of our functional model of, I'm sure already maybe in this program, you'll lean heavily on prayer as you go. Yeah, psychopathology, right? When you get the DSM and you realize how big it is and that you'll be fully conversant in it by week 4. That'll involve some prayer and faith that you can make it through. But it's the guiding factor of the work of Christ in our lives. And then evangelical unity is one of my favorite. I think I've said this for each one though, but evangelical unity is this capacity to hold to the things that are primary, while in my experience, lovingly debate the things that are not. Right? Is that we can sharpen one another and grow towards Christ's likeness by being unified in the things that matter for the sake of the gospel, that Christ was born, lived, died, and was raised. That the biblical worldview model that you've seen in the couch chat that was released yesterday, right? This idea of the fall, of creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. We hold to those things in unity, and then a lot of secondary issues and tertiary issues that we can agree or disagree on. So the mission of our program is to offer professional training in clinical mental health counseling within a biblical worldview in order to provide Christ-like therapeutic relationships for healing and growth. The way that we do this is through this triad, which looks like this: academic excellence in our content, spiritual formation, and life formation in our character. The best way to mentor you and grow you in biblical worldview formation is through the heart, because you are what you love and you chase after what you desire. And so in order to grow like Christ, we want you to love and desire that. And then we train you in professional skills. You'll see different questions will come up as you go through this program. Most of the time, we'll say, I wanted to have a t-shirt made. I've seen them, but haven't done it yet. It says like, check the syllabus. You know, if you've seen that meme, it's in the syllabus. Most of the questions that you'll have are in the syllabus of the course that you're taking. Questions that are broader than that course will be in the program handbook. The program handbook is accessible through the program orientation shell in Canvas. A quick side note that's come up a couple times already this week. Especially for the online students, each week in the program, in the modules of the course shell, has what's called a week overview, week 1 overview, week 2 overview. That's not just a descriptor, that's where most of your resources are embedded. So if you can't find a reading or a video that's referenced in one of your assignments, it's probably linked in that overview. So go to the overview, click on it, and you'll see lots of resources there. I just discovered someone had gone through most of last semester not being aware of that, which means there was lots of things that were missed. So
Yeah, and a couple other things you might want to remember as you're doing that is like, look for feedback on your things that you submit online. We may go in and put comments or notes, and I found that sometimes students don't know and they keep making the same mistakes over because they didn't know how to find those. So if you're struggling with things like that, make sure you check with somebody and we can help you with that. But you will be under the program handbook for this year. If for some reason something changes in the program and now there's a new requirement that you don't have, it doesn't affect you unless you change handbooks. So just be aware of those things. And sometimes it's to your advantage. So, like if next year we decide you only have to take 30 credits instead of 60, you might want to upgrade to the new catalog, but that won't happen because we're take credit. So.
You should all be registered at this point, but if you have questions, here's how to do it, how to access it, and your advisor can help you. Unfortunately, we can't register for you, but we can help you and walk you through
Yeah,
that.
and textbooks are mentioned there. Just understand that textbooks are provided through Slingshot unless you opt out. Which there's no charge, you're not charged for what is, what they decide is available. So maybe they only provide a digital copy and you'd rather have a hard copy, then you might pay an upcharge for that. But it is to your advantage. I mean, they provide some resources as part of your tuition. So make sure that you know about Slingshot, but do make sure you send them back on time, because we've had people end up with charges because they didn't send them back. So make sure you pay attention to those kinds of things.
Yeah, you would think with something named Slingshot that it just comes to you, right? I suggested they change it to Boomerang, but right,
That's why they're not getting their books back.
that's right. I was like, what? It's a Slingshot. It's a one-way. That's not how it works. All right, KCREP accredited, we are accredited, and you'll see if you look on KCREP's website, which I'm sure all of you have bookmarked, that we're accredited through the end of March. That doesn't mean that in starting this program, you're just not, you're not gonna be accredited. We're in the process of review and we'll get extended. As a KCREP accredited program, we are accredited and we meet the standards, and we have to just demonstrate how we continue to meet the standards through lots and lots of documentation.
Right, and if we weren't gonna be accredited, they would have already told us. So it's not something to be fearful of. It's just knowing that these are the dates in February.
February
Doing our
26th through
solids.
28th, yeah.
So they may ask some of you to meet with them online to answer questions about what your experience has been like, that kind of thing. But they look at all aspects of a program to make sure that it's meeting the standards.
We're hoping for an 8-year reaccreditation. So we'll see how that goes. But you'll see even as we go through, it's not just like the Jesus answer in Sunday school, or because I told you so as a parent, when we say like, well, KCREP says we have to do this. Like actually we have to do a lot of really detailed specific things to maintain this accreditation. And it's beneficial for you because many states require KCREP accreditation to pursue licensure, and the states that don't require it highly suggest and recommend you have it. So as we're looking at licensure portability through the counseling compact, which if you don't know about that, we'll talk about it more as we go in the classes, but KCREP is going to be a critical step towards being able to do that, which as a program, we're accredited nationally, but our standards in coursework meet South Carolina's licensure standards, which is pretty similar across the board, unless you're California and they have weird things just generally, but also in counseling. But for the most part, when you're in our program, as you are in like your first to second year, we'll discuss, you want to discuss with your advisor, if you're not in South Carolina, what requirements might be present for where you're located to make sure that the electives that you take match what's needed for that state.
Let's go back to the Dr. Hutter's slide and introduce him, let him pray for our program this year.
Yeah, fine, there it is.
There it is. Come on up.
You're the next contestant.
Is this online?
Yes, being live streamed.
All right.
That's good, right there.
So I'm Dr. Croto. I'm the Dean of the Seminary and School of Counseling. I didn't put this meeting on my calendar today, so that's why I was showing up late. Sorry about that. Welcome, new students. So glad that you're with us. Those here in person, those who are watching this online. Our counseling program here at CIU is such a perfect fit for our mission to impact the nations with the message of Christ. And the needs right now in South Carolina and throughout our country for mental health professionals who have a trauma-informed and faith-integrated philosophy of counseling is just so important. And there's just not enough. There's not enough people. We don't have enough people to train the people. We don't have enough students. and we need to make a bigger impact in the mental health field than we currently are. And so I vigorously advocate for this program all week long with at this university, trying to grow it in quality and in quantity so we can start making a dent into the mental health crisis that our country is experiencing. So I'm so glad you guys are with us, because if we don't have students, then we don't have a program. And so we need students. So thank you for being here. You want me to pray for the semester? I didn't know I was going to have to pray, so I didn't plan for that either, but I'll figure something out. Lord, we thank you so much for the opportunity to be involved with a program like this counseling program with these faculty who love you and love their students and love what they're doing. I pray, God, for these students as they're approaching this semester, the courses they're going to be taking, the assignments they're going to be doing. I pray, God, that you help them have the focus and the energy and the passion to do well, to love you with their heart, soul, and their mind and strength. We pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Let me get you now before it gets overrun.
Sure.
All right, so if you're online, take a few minutes, go to the bathroom, get some food, whatever you need to do. We're gonna take a short break and we will join back in about 10 minutes.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so you guys are gonna be able to go out there. There's, if you haven't been here before, there's a pizza bar, there's some
Camera, if you want, I'll move the camera to shoot. Is that is good? Yep.
All right. So, both, Dr. Scott and Dr. Proto talked about our desire to have a biblical worldview, a faith integration, and the assumption that we all have, which I think is the valid one, is that you guys chose CIU because we will both prepare you to become a professional counselor, but you also consider your faith at CIU. We want to find ways to bring those two realities together. What we often refer to as integration, but we unapologetically want to engage with God's truth as we prepare you to become professionals. So one of the things that we want to do for each year is try to think through what we refer to as our theme. And for this year, we've titled it Outfit Included. This passage out of Colossians chapter 3, where Paul is using this metaphor of putting on, like clothing, this idea. And so as those who have been chosen of God, holy and beloved, put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another and forgiving each other. As the Lord forgave you, you should also forgive others. And beyond all these things, put on love, which is a perfect bond of unity. Now, the reason why I kind of was thinking through this particular, and as I was talking to the other faculty, as I mentioned, we are new to the Columbia area, and my daughters are attending Ben Lippen School. And my older daughter, Ainsley, she found out that they have uniforms. Now, I was a little concerned about this at first, but I didn't know how she'd respond to it. She's been in public schools. I mean, they have a dress code, but sometimes it's not really carried. And so when she found out that there was a uniform, a dress code at this school, she actually said, "Dad, I'm really excited about that." Now, I never grew up with sisters. I never had to deal with wardrobe realities of young ladies in that sense. And I'll be honest, I was very surprised. I didn't expect her to be excited about this, but here's her rationale. She said, "Dad, I don't have to figure out how I need to look for everyone else." I thought, that's really interesting to her. And I can imagine as a young middle school girl, that's a constant worry, right? Having to wear the right thing to impress the right people at the right time. Am I feeling some amens from some of the ladies in the house, right? Is that even Dr. Proto can agree to that, right? That it's an anxiety-producing reality that if you're not wearing the right thing, you will be killed, right? And so for her, it was a source of encouragement that an outfit is provided for her, that she has something. Now, there's some flexibility in that, but nevertheless, the idea is this is how we want, and you don't have to worry about what you're going to look like in the community because it's provided for you. That for me was such an encouragement to think about, not just for my own daughters, but I think what God does for us. I mean, if you go all the way back to the creation account, where, as you know, literally the last verse in chapter 2 of Genesis is they were naked and were not ashamed. We didn't have clothing because there was no barrier between us. It wasn't until the fall entered in that this idea of clothing and our attempts to bring our own outfits, you know the story, they sewed together fig leaves to cover their shame. But I love how it said that in Genesis 2, they were naked and were not ashamed. Right? If you've ever seen any of those children's Bibles, you know, to some degree, they have to figure out you see those images of Adam and Eve in the garden, right? There's like a tree branch, right, selectively put around here, some tigers that are walking around here, right? The artists do that for our good, but Adam and Eve had no shame, no branches were needed in that early. It wasn't until the fall, until sin enters in, that we have a sense of shame. Still remember almost all of my kids at that point where they made that transition to especially my boys, there's something about boys and running around naked. They used to love that, right? But then I distinctly remember the point where I remember going to my son Zachary's room, and I should have knocked ahead of time, but I opened it up and he was ready to say, Dad, I'm getting changed. And I remember, and I'm thinking, at first as a father, I'm like, listen, I have seen every bit and then some, okay? Like, there's nothing new here for me to deal with. But for him, there was that shame that he felt, right? And I always remember too, again, thinking how, again, he doesn't cover his ears, he doesn't cover his naked elbows. It's those parts of his body that we all understand where the shame comes from, right? And our attempts to cover ourselves never work. God has to come in and provide clothing. But that first offering, that first covering was just a picture of what God was going to perform in providing an outfit for us, metaphorically speaking. Which is why I think the image on the cross, every one of the gospel accounts gives this understanding of how they take Jesus's clothing, how they divide it, how they cast lots for it. And I don't know if you've ever seen either a painting or a statue. You ever seen the crucifixion picture of Jesus on the cross? Almost every rendering of that image, Jesus is covered. But understand, artists do that because we love Jesus. Because in reality, Jesus was not covered. He was completely stripped. Because they wanted to humiliate those prisoners as much as possible. We cover Jesus because we love him. The Romans had no such desire. But I think it's a perfect engagement with the shame we felt in Genesis 3. Jesus takes on that shame on the cross. Right? So that passages like this can now be a reality for us. We are given new clothing. Clothing that comes from the finished work of Christ through the ministry of the Holy Spirit in the community of God's people to put on kindness, patience, and utmost love so that we can then extend this joy to other people. And to me, this is what we're hoping for you in this program. We want you to find joy in the tools and the techniques, and sometimes it is going to be hard as you're going through it. But you are being given the opportunity to be a, can I say it this way, wardrobe technician for the kingdom? I just made up terms right now, okay? You can use that on Twitter if you want. But you're not trying to give people your own clothing. You're not trying to clothe them in your own, or even in their own goodness. We have the joy of helping people, sometimes, as Dr. Scott said, sometimes directly or indirectly. But the idea is that we get to step into the ambassadors of God's new wardrobe line. And that's exciting for me. This is literally why I moved my family across the country, is to be with you all. Because I'm excited for what God is doing in this program. That we get to train you to be clinically proficient, to be ready and licensed as a professional, but to have theological engagement that has a robust understanding of the gospel, and to be able to see this reality that much more in your care for others. So at some point, if you haven't already, we will get you a sticker that looks exactly like that. You're welcome to put it on computers or bottles and things like that, but we will ensure that you have a representation of this to kind of help you remember what the theme for this year is and be encouraged by that. All right. But moving on from there, we also did want to just make some reminders regarding some of the differences. So I'm kind of making a shift here now between our theme for this year and some reminders between the in-class and online modalities for this program. We often say here at CIU, we have one program. This is the MA in Clinical Counseling. How you engage with it in the courses may be different, whether in person or online. But as the faculty have been talking, we want to remind people that there are differences between these two modalities that is helpful for you to remember, both for you that are taking it online or in person or doing a hybrid. Some of you might do a little bit of both. So the way that I tried to do this was help you understand that there are some specific benefits to those modalities. Like, for instance, in person, you get to have this incredible engagement with fellow students, not just in the classroom, but here in this lunchroom. This is a huge part of learning that residential students get. That is a real blessing, right? You do have some greater access to your instructor. The fact is that you can walk down the hall, and when Dr. Gibson's door is open, you can poke your head in there and she'll be like, come on in, let's talk. That's a huge blessing that you have available to you, as much as you have incredible opportunities for networking, both here and beyond, because you're not obviously just isolated by yourself. That being said, there are some specific benefits of being online, what we call our asynchronous learning. You have significant more convenience and flexibility. My class this morning starts at 8 o'clock. And silly me, I want my students there at 8 o'clock on campus, right? Comparatively, online, it's asynchronous. So there is not a specific time that you have to meet every week. That allows you that flexibility online to do all the other things that you want to be able to do. Your residential, you have to be here at that time, generally as well. And just generally speaking, it helps you if you have different learning styles. So those in person may have to kind of, at the end of the day, one of the things we want to remind people, as I say here, some reminders, don't expect students, and vice versa. Don't expect to get the pros of in-class learning if you're an online student. And that may seem somewhat, of course that's the case, right? Online, you're not going to get that same level of access to your faculty. That's because you chose a format that gives you some pros, but has some cons, and vice versa. I think sometimes we have an expectation that so we want to remind you, if you go to the next slide as well, you'll see that there are also some cons with this as well. Less flexible, higher cost, and geared towards certain learning styles. Cons with online, less social interaction, less access to the instructor, and greater need for motivation and self-discipline. But one of the things we want to remind you is that you have to adjust to the modality you engage with, right? That whatever it is you're doing, whether it's all online or all in person or a hybrid, take the opportunities to adjust as needed and accommodate to those cons, right? And we're here to help you with that, but that's why we're making this reminder now, so you can fully understand what your responsibility is in all of this. And just some last reminders, if you could just forward the screen one more time. Some of the things that we as faculty have been kind of thinking through. And again, we just want to encourage you to remember schedules, breaks, experience. You look at the other mode and say, hey, wait, your schedule's different than mine, or your breaks are different than mine. And they start comparing and contrasting. And dare I even say in a Christian community sometimes, about things. I know none of you would do that. But sometimes they look at each other modality and they think they should be the same. They're not. There's differences because of the modality, and we want you to remember that. Some online courses will offer some Zoom calls, and we'll do our best, if that's offered as an option to find a time that works with the majority of students. So what that means is it's not always going to work. We'll try and record it when we can, and you can engage with it. And so look for the specific instructions. But the whole idea of online asynchronous learning is that you don't have as much engagement. So those online Zoom classes are given as an option to kind of help with some of that. And if it works, great, but we're going to try and find something that works with the majority, not with everyone. It's just not a way to do that for everyone. And so lastly, just make sure you have all the technological skills to really succeed and make this a priority. You can't do everything. I was just saying this in class this morning. Oprah said I could do everything. I'm here to tell you, Oprah's wrong. You can't do everything. So you're gonna have to make some sacrifices with other work or ministry or relationships or hobbies. But make sure you find the things that you need to sacrifice in order to succeed in the ways that you need to. But no, we are here to help you with that. And so we just want to provide some of these reminders between these two modalities to really kind of help you succeed in both. All right. Any questions with either of those? Any other expectations or things we can try and clarify, or any other additions the faculty?
No, I would just say we have an example here. She said she didn't mind me pointing her out. She started out online last semester and said, I am changing my work schedule and I am coming to school. So you'll find out perhaps in the process how you work best and how you learn best. And you'll make those adjustments to be where you need to be. I mean, I realize some of you are in other countries, and so that might be a pretty huge adjustment, but hey, we welcome you to move here anytime. So, thank you, Dr. Matthew. I want to talk a little bit about, the reason we do orientation is because KCREC says that we need to make sure you know what you're signing up for. So for you new students especially, what we're trying to do is help orient you to what this program's like. So I know we're throwing a lot of information at you, and some of it you're going to need to go back and look at. But one area I really want to make sure that you understand is the need for feedback. Sometimes, maybe up to this point, education has seemed like, let me show the teacher how smart I am and how much I know and how good I am at everything. That's not going to work here, because that's not what we're looking for. Because that's more trying to put on a show and let people know how good you are. We know you're great, or we wouldn't have accepted you. So that's already decided. It's just now we're saying, how can we help you discover things that will make you the best therapist you can be? And so that's going to require us to give you feedback on things sometimes. Like, this is something we're noticing. We might be wrong. It's okay, but it's just something we're noticing. What do you think? And it'll be a conversation. But sometimes it has to go to other more things. But what we're looking for is this word slope will help you. One is self-awareness. That's probably the most huge thing. There are things you don't recognize about yourself that other people around you probably could list pretty quickly. And in some of your groups, you'll be challenged to see yourself as other people see you. Now, does it mean their view is right and your view is wrong? No, it's some combination of the two. But self-awareness, and we're looking for progress, not perfection. It's okay to say this is an area where I'm still growing. It's okay for you to not always be, we want to see movement toward getting better, but we're not looking for you to be perfect. And sometimes when you take a class, you'll think, well, I have to give the right perfect answer that someone would give if they've been doing this job for 20 years. Well, that's not realistic, right? So we just want to see that you're making perfection. And the biggest thing for me is openness to feedback. If your professor or if one of your peers comes to you and says something, can you be open to at least consider that what they're saying might have some. And can you engage in your discussion without being defensive? And you're going to sit down with, we have an obligation to make sure that we're sending people out there that aren't going to harm someone. And that you're a good fit for the profession. So they call that gatekeeping. It's the idea that we are trying to decide who's fit to do this job, and we have a responsibility. But understand we're doing it from a place of, we believe you have what it takes, and we want to help you get there. And if you're open to feedback, you'll get there. So, the purpose of feedback, again, is your professional development. We like you. We want you to be successful. I wish that, like, my personality is cheerleader. I'd love to only tell you good things, but I realize that's not always going to be the best for you. So sometimes we'll have hard conversations, but they are just that. They're conversations, and we can continue them. And again, you don't have to agree with everything to say, but you just need to be open to it. So we do something called a professional performance review, a PPR. At the end of every single semester, you'll be instructed to take this. And it's where you evaluate yourself for each of these areas, like things like accepting personal responsibility, dealing with conflicts. And it might be where you're like, well, I didn't really have that happen this time. That's okay. But evaluate yourself. And then as a faculty, and we found with as many students as we have now, this takes a while, now it's 2 days instead of 1. We sit down and we go through each student. We pray for you. We look at what you filled out on your PPR. We look at your CAPE assessment and say, how's the student doing? How can we better support them? Where do we see areas? So it's not that we expect your PPR to be perfect, but we expect that if we think, let's say you're chronically late to class and you tell us that you're perfect on attendance, you have no problem, that's going to be a problem. But if you say, yeah, I'm struggling in this area, and we say, yeah, you are, good, we agree, we both are seeing the same thing, not that it's good, but you know. So, we don't have grad advising chapels like undergrad, but we do have an open door policy where you can make appointments or you can stop by and say, I want some help in figuring out my future. You contact your advisor, or you can always come and see me because I do try to keep the schedule straight so that people can do that. We can meet for lunch, we can do all those things. Dr. Scott, do you want to talk about the CAPE?
Sure, yeah. Part of the advising process is, well, I like acronyms. So SLOPE, CAPE, right? It's this piece, this opportunity for us as your faculty to join with you in goal planning for where you are and where you want to go, as well as spiritual formation, to encourage, support, model, advise, all of these different pieces. So aligned with your PPR once a year is our collaborative annual performance evaluation, where you'll fill out some goals with action steps, just like you'll learn this semester in psychopathology and doing a treatment plan. We want short-term goals and action steps that we can measure, and we'll check in with you each year as your advisor and say, how's it going in these areas? How can we be praying for you and with you? How can we make you successful so that by the time you graduate, you're at the point that you want to be in that engagement? So that's part of this. We do it in December of every year. So when you do your PPR at the end of the fall semester, you also complete your CAPE. And then we'll review that with you. Your advisor will review it with you. Some of the other fun things to be aware of in our program is, yeah, Danny?
Is that like each chapter or is that your advisor?
It's with your advisor. So PPR and CAPE are both advisors. And you'll do it through software called Tavera, which I'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, it's all on there, and you'll get like a notification reminder to say, hey, complete your PPR. It's time to complete it. Complete your CAPE. It's time to complete it. And it's just a fill-in form, multiple choice form. Vault is, I didn't come up with this acronym. This is an official acronym. It's a video audio learning tool. So one of the ways that we want to support you in the skill development piece is by having to watch yourself do counseling. It's incredibly awkward. Just really any viewing of yourself in any video is awkward. And so we start early to help you get over some of that awkwardness. And it's a software and hardware program that we have in our labs. So we have 5 counseling labs on campus that we'll use throughout your training program with audio video recordings so that you can role play in early classes and then see clients through the counseling training center, the CTC within the classes. So, and you'll get some experience with some of this throughout the program. Someone want to talk about advocacy? You want to talk about?
Yeah, just real quickly, there is a requirement, it's a K-12 requirement, but we think it's a really great requirement that every year you're engaged in some kind of advocacy. And so when you're in the introduction to clinical mental health counseling, we'll talk more in depth and you'll develop a plan. But just know that for now, it can be anything. You can talk to other students and join them on something. It might be something you're already doing. So it can be advocating for some type of mental health, either prevention, it could be something on campus that you join to help with the undergrads. It can be a walk for, walk a mile in your shoes for sexual trauma services. It could be all kinds of things. It's really wide. It's just the idea that you're engaged in helping, something to do with mental health or something for the counseling profession. So one of the big issues for the counseling profession is the counseling compact, to make it where you can go from one state to another and be licensed. So you might write some letter things that you can do. So you will complete a plan that first year fall, but for you it'll be next fall. And then you'll hopefully start to take a leadership role and invite other students to join you in doing some of the advocacy events. So talk to our other students when they get here. They'll be trickling in over the next 15 minutes and find out what kinds of things they're doing for advocacy. But it can be a one-time event. It can be an ongoing event. You've got the South Carolina Department of Mental Health and a bunch of other organizations that you can partner with to do something to raise awareness to help people. And we can do that. Some of the things we've done are with military veterans, homeless, crisis pregnancy centers, suicide awareness, just lots of things that you can get involved in. Okay. Tavera is that program we were talking about earlier. You purchase it for a course fee in that 5306, the clinical mental health counseling course. So when you take that in the fall, you'll have it, or do we have any students or no? I guess we'll probably have to add you before, so, and then you'll get the course fee in the fall. But we use that now, it will later be really important to you as you track your practicum and internship hours and supervisors sign off on things. And it'll be yours to keep forever. So even as you're doing licensure hours, it will track all that for you. So we switched to that program for that reason. You pay a one-time fee and it's yours forever. But we use it also to do our PPRs and our cake forms and other documentation. So it's a great way to keep everything together and be able to show cake rep that we're doing. As far as the CTC, he mentioned the Counseling Training Center. If you've been to Pamplin, it probably had class in there this morning. To the left, there's some rooms that are counseling rooms. They're all wired with that vault system. And it's a chance for people who are in practicum and internship to see students here on campus who are undergraduates who need counseling help for free. So, and sometimes been living students come also. Anything else on that? Canvas, you should be familiar with that now, but in case you're not, I did have a question this week that kind of blew me away. So all of your courses should be in Canvas. If it's an online course, it's going to have probably more stuff in Canvas, but all of your courses should be on Canvas, where they'll give you your syllabus, they'll track different information, they'll send out announcements. So let's say there's a winter storm warning and your class is canceled, they can send emails through that system. So you want to make sure you're in the right class, in the right section, getting access to those things. And that's where you'll generally upload and submit your assignments and stuff.
Which means it's windy out.
Yes. It means nothing will happen. If it's ever canceled, that means you just enjoy the day. You can guarantee nothing bad happens when it's canceled.
Yeah.
This Canvas orientation should have gotten all been put into that course, and that's what we send out announcements to every program requirement. You need to understand that being in a counseling program carries certain risks. You're going to talk about things that might be hard to talk about because your clients are going to talk about things that might be hard to talk about. So understand it could trigger some emotions or some things in you, and you need to know that. You have the right to share as much or as little about your life as you'd like. We'll put you in groups. We'll often ask you to share things with one another, but you never have to share anything that you don't feel comfortable sharing. We talked about the PPR. We talked about every course there'll be an evaluation set. There's usually extra credit associated with that. And that's where professors get feedback on how well they taught the course, how they're doing, that kind of thing. So we appreciate your feedback on that. The advocacy once a year, and then spring of your second year, if you're a full-time student, you'll apply for candidacy, which means you've taken all the classes that you needed to take for candidacy and all that materials on that Canvas orientation site so you can look at it. But it means that you've taken the classes you need to take and you're ready to head toward your practicum and internship. So make sure you look at notes and don't miss deadlines for that. Those prereqs are things that you need to finish by the start of second year. I think the only prereq we still have is the gen psych. So if for some reason you think you're without that prereq, just either take a course or clep out of it sometime during this first time you're in school so that that'll be taken care of. And then the third year, when you're in your internship too, there's a competency exam. We're not like schools where that affects your ability to graduate. It's just an exam that tells us how we're doing. Are you learning what you need to learn? So it's a practice for what you'll be taking for the NCU. And you'll sign up for that. And then we have an asterisk here. We've started a Bible reading plan. There's several different versions you can use, but we ask that our students during the time you're here that you read through the Bible. And so you can do that maybe on an app. What I like is going to Walmart and getting like a $10 Bible that I can mark up. And then I know that, hey, this year I've got highlights through the entire Bible, so I know I've covered it. It's a really fun way to do it, to make sure that you get, but there's lots of plans out there and you can use.
We provide you with a 3-year plan. You don't have to do it in 3 years. You can do it in a year. It actually only takes like, what, 72 hours to read through the New Testament. So
yeah. And then the informed consent again covers things like role plays, dual relationships, confidentiality, being able to fail safely. We do have FERPA regulations regarding emails. So if you send an email, make sure you use your CIU email address, because of FERPA reasons, we're not supposed to answer you or send back certain sensitive information. But make sure you look over our requirements. In general, we expect people to take 3 classes each time with 2 summer residencies. That gives you full-time financial aid wise. So if you're depending on financial aid, you need to look at that carefully and take it as prescribed. If you are not caring about financial aid, or you've got a situation where you're paying as you go, it might be more cost effective for you to take 2 classes. 2 classes is considered, 2 classes is enough for financial aid. And that's part-time. So, there may be some changes coming up and we'll put those in as we go. But in general, this is the schedule that you're going to typically follow. You can take more classes. We used to do 4 in a semester. It's not impossible. Just know that it may impact your financial aid later. But I personally recommend that you take less coursework when you're doing your internships, because they're about a 20-hour-a-week commitment. And they're intense, right? You're in it. So it's a lot to be doing that at the same time that you're trying to do coursework. So if you have the ability to do that, then that's a great way to get those classes out of the way. The residencies are required, so whether you're online or you're in person, all of our students come for these 2 residencies. The first year, we recommend that you come. It's the 3rd week of May. It kicks off on a Sunday night with a worship service, and then you have class literally all day, Monday through Thursday. One of those evenings will be an event. It is an exhausting schedule, and we know it, and we do it on purpose. So you're there for a trauma class. And Dr. Scott makes sure you're traumatized through it. He also teaches you some really great skills. And then Dr. Wagner comes along and cleans up. We love on you a little bit at the end, but there's pre and post class work, but it's not one of those classes that you're doing stuff every week all summer, because we do want you to take somewhat of a break in the summer. But it's a great way for us to get to know each other. We just have a great time together. So you're gonna really enjoy it.
It's May 19th through 24th this year.
Yes. And then year 2, you come back for your residency again, if you're doing complete full-time. And that's where you'll take your practicum class. And so same sort of thing, the Sunday night kickoff with everyone, and then you'll be in class, usually with Dr. Gibson, maybe with me. We'll do practicum where you'll do role plays and you'll try things out, and you'll be down in the counseling training rooms, running your videos, looking at yourself, giving yourself feedback, that kind of stuff. And you'll have those classes all day. It's a little less intense. You might get out a little sooner so that you can work on some of your projects for the class. And then throughout the summer, you're seeing about 5 hours a week, you're working in some sort of internship site where you'll continue on for fall and spring. But during that first part, it's not a lot. It's more observation depending on the site. But there's not a lot. It's only 40 hours of required face-to-face. So you still get to have a pretty decent summer. And all the work is the rest of the summer at your site. And then it leads right into internship for most students. And again, this one will help you with some of those kinds of things. Practicum is 100-hour total. 40 of those are direct, sitting in front of a client doing counseling or co-therapy. 14 hours of that is once a week you're having site supervision. And then 21 hours is faculty group supervision. So you will have, that's the only time that online students are required. There's this live component where you come to your group each week for an hour and a half and talk about your cases and staff them with your supervisor. And then for internship, it's 600 hours total over 2 internships. But K-Prep looks at it as one, experience. So it's 240 hours of direct face-to-face clients, 14 per semester. So 28 hours of site supervision and 21 per semester of your, and the way we have it designed, because you start your practicum in summer and then you go internship 1, internship 2. If you don't finish all your hours, you could still walk in the graduation and then complete hours over the summer. But you won't officially graduate until you finish all your hours, and you can't be licensed until you have that official degree. So those are just things you want to think through. And over that practicum and internship, at some point, you need to be doing at least 10 hours of group. So you'll want to look at sites that will give you that opportunity, or you might decide to be a group leader here for one of our classes, and you can do that. So anything else? Academic reminders, just make sure you're paying attention to integrity. Plagiarism is unfortunately a big deal. I always talk about how in the old days, it was just too much work to plagiarize. I'd have to drive to the library, go get a book, Maybe I could afford to do a Xerox copy, but I was gonna type all those words, but now that you can just highlight and copy and paste, it sometimes you mean to go back and change it and put in your own words and you forget. There's just all kinds of things that we use that check those things. So things will ping. So make sure that you're not plagiarizing, that if you're talking about anything that's not your idea, novel to you, which means most everything you're gonna talk about, you should cite someone as having talked to you that or talked about that. Don't be paranoid about it, but just be careful as you're writing, and you can get other help. There's some modules on our course website. We do expect you to be in class, like we design things based on the number of students who are there, and we're gonna look for you to be there. We understand that things might happen, but I think our department has if you miss more than 25%, then you can't get credit for the course because you're not there. And then if you need accommodations, if your GPA falls below 3.0 overall or below for a semester, you will be on academic probation. And then while you're on academic probation, you're not allowed to take more than 10 hours. And then when you get back up to 3.0, it can be removed. Okay. Anything else? Petitions. Yeah. There's this form in my CIU, and you literally copy the form and it says name and whatever, what you're requesting. Then you paste it into an email, send it to your advisor. The advisor approves it, sends it to the assistant dean. The assistant dean sends it to the registrar, and then it will get back to you that the petition is either approved or not. No work can be submitted after the last day of class. So that's not your teacher being mean. It is a university policy. So unless there's an incomplete in place, you really need to turn everything in by the last day of class, except for practicum and internship. Policy on late work. We really have talked a lot about this as a faculty, that being on time is really important. And we understand that things happen, but when you're billing, say Medicaid, or doing some other things like that, if you don't bill within a reasonable amount of time, if you don't write your notes in a reasonable amount of time, you're not going to get paid. So one of the things we want to teach you is professionalism. So as much as possible, you want to be on time for your assignments. If something's late, you'll get a 10% deduction per day. I prefer that you still go ahead and submit it, because I think if it was an assignment that I created, I think it's supported. I'd like you to still do it, but sometimes students decide that, well, I'm not gonna get any credit anyway, I don't wanna do it. So that's up to you. But just understand there is that. So you might need to go work on some other stuff that's due. APA, usually 12-point font times New Roman, something like that. Notice that APA is double spaced. So some of your papers, it's not as much content as you think because you're double spacing. There are differences, let me say this, in professors, and we've talked about this. You are going to have clients that are different, and you're going to have to adjust. And so rather than us trying to all be on the same page, you're going to have to adjust. So if you write a little extra in my class, I don't really care. It's not a big deal. I think it's cool. I love, But other professors will say, nope, I stopped reading at this page and you're done. So you need to know your professor and find out what their expectations are as far as that. And class attendance we talked about, so we're good. Academic calendar, you can find that on my CIU. Pay attention to those kinds of things. There's things like prayer days that you can be involved with as much or as little as you like on campus. There's a grad life retreat, all kinds of fun things that you can do. Social team, we've done a lot more social things in the past, and then COVID kind of threw us off track. But sometimes we'll have a party or have people come out to the house. Let us know if you have interest and the time and energy to plan these things. We're happy to have you over. But we may need help with that. So let us know if you want to be part of that. Anything else?
Well, we have a couple academic success slides, but we can welcome in the returning students. Any questions from anybody at this point that Albert can answer for us? A lot of content.
Like now that there's a ton of people, I'm gonna ask.
Yeah. Well, if you have questions, yes, Dr. Wagner.
You've given me all this great information. I'm not sure I can retain it all. Where can I find this information in one location?
Yes, great question. So all of the information that we've gone over, we'll also be uploading the link to this live stream as well as the PowerPoints. So as soon as we're done, I'll upload the PowerPoints. The live stream is already available on our grad counseling YouTube page. And so we'll have different events throughout the semester. Actually, we have some coming up. February 9th is our next event with live trainings. All of that will be live streamed to our new grad counseling YouTube page. So you're able to see all that stuff if it all goes well. And the technology works, it's there and will be accessible. Otherwise, I'll be like little cartoon drawings things that I'll be making up to cover the things that I mess up on the technology. And then other things kind of pop up throughout the semester. So you should have gotten like a couch chat that went live yesterday afternoon. Different things like that, you know, when I need a creative outlet from grading or something, Dr. Matthew and I will be doing a couch chat on what is biblical worldview and integration as the next one, I think. So, and I moved my couch, so there's a little bit more space in my office too. So we'll see how that goes. But all right. Any other questions? Is that the answer you were thinking? Yes.
So anybody who feels incredibly challenged, where should we go for help?
You can contact me. I'll help you.
Aw.
But the library, the Academic Success Center, second floor of the library can help with a lot of that kind of
Or you
stuff.
pair up, an older student pairs up with a younger student.
Yeah.
Really great.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll help you.
Yeah. So find someone that looks like they're under 30 and they probably can help you
That's what I do.
for the most part, right? There's some exceptions in this room. We won't call you out. I helped my son yesterday. He couldn't get his Xbox controller to do the sound through his headphones. And I was like, I'll fix it for you. He's like, you won't know how to do that. Like, 30 seconds. Any ideas on what I did?
Turn it off.
Turned it off and turned it on. Reset the default settings, did a digital reset, and it worked. He's like, how'd you know how to do that? It's like, I've seen 3 seasons of IT Crowd, right? You turn it off and turn it on. And he's 14, right? He should be showing me how to do stuff. Any other questions? That was a good question. Yeah, the Academic Success Center can help with that, but also really any kind of, that's where accommodations, you get accommodations piece. That's where our tutors are. We'll show that in a minute, but the grad life retreat is coming up. You saw an announcement on that.
It's filling up really quickly, so if you're gonna go,
Yeah.
sign up now.
We like to try to have it be predominantly counseling students, you know, just to show up the grad life situation. But yeah, it is a lot of fun. It's a beautiful environment. Von Clarkin Retreat Center at Flat Rock, North Carolina. It's only like, how far was it from here? It was like 2 hours.
And it's only $50, which
Yeah.
you can't beat, because that's your accommodations, your food, everything.
And a t-shirt. We got a t-shirt last year, so.
A long sleeve t-shirt.
Long sleeve t-shirt, I know. You don't have that many long sleeve t-shirts. It's rare, you know. We'll see what we get this year. Any other? So any advice from the existing students from what you've learned either in one semester or across a couple years that you would give to those just starting this semester? Any advice?
Trust the process.
Trust the process, all right?
It's gonna be difficult your first year, just because you're learning so many new things and just information is getting thrown at you. And you may feel like at times like, oh, is this what God has called me to? Like, but I would just say stick with it and just push through, and we will get to that point where it's like, okay, I see it working out now. So,
Good.
just trust it.
It's just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong, right? Especially as an integrated program, right? God uses suffering to conform us to the image of Christ. As Lewis says in The Problem of Pain, pain is the megaphone that reminds us of God's presence. And so as soon as the difficulty is removed, we tend to become self-sufficient or think we're never actually self-sufficient. We think we're self-sufficient and we forget our dependency on God. So we're trying to help you grow spiritually as well. So it's not why it's difficult. That's just the kind of a byproduct of the graduate process. But because of our faith, we have a means of redeeming some of that difficulty, which is good. Yes.
Say create relationships with people that are around you. So whether you're in class and it's your professor, it's your advisors, classmates, like make sure you create relationships. You'll find that they'll help you like throughout everything in like ways you can expect. Like, for example, you get to techniques and all of a sudden like, wow, now I have to make a video with somebody. Who am I gonna make a video with? Or, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks on end and stare at myself with, you know what I mean? Yeah, so I everybody's laughing. But yeah, making friends, getting like close professors, and they're open resources to you. And all of them are, and they're really, really great resources. So when you invest in them, you'll find that your time's gonna become a lot easier, and I think it'll become a lot more fun too.
Good. Thanks, Ray. Any other wise advice from anyone?
Yes.
All right.
One thing that I kind of learned this.
Yeah, I told you Al would have some.
This past semester, is to find your rhythm. Because I mean, you're an adult, you have life, everything's kind of happening at one time and you're doing all these assignments. And I want to stress like all of the assignments because there's a lot of them. But, and it can be overwhelming at times, but as long as you have a rhythm, something that you can come back to or, time away from it, utilize it as much as possible.
Good. Thank you, Albert. Healthy habits and rhythms.
We got some feedback from the online crew.
Okay.
One of the students, Hina Luna, what's that, Fanny? She said to have coffee ready at all times. And I believe that's Mr. Nicholas said, be open-minded and don't be overly critical of yourself.
Good. In my PhD program, one of the excellent recommendations as I was preparing to enter was Crystal Light makes a caffeinated addition to water. So then you get the benefit of the caffeine without the dehydrant of the coffee, right? So you have like both water and caffeine, as well as now lots of different like caffeinated water products.
Then you can take Dr. Scott's addiction course.
That's right. Yeah, I used to teach an addictive behaviors course. And so the semester before, I would try to get them connected to different things because they had to give something up. So I would constantly be pushing coffee. And I'd say, all right, now you got to give up coffee because I needed them to have a good enough like withdrawal to make it worthwhile. Yeah.
Brandon Oak says, practice your techniques as much as possible.
Good. All right. All right, a few final things for everybody. As we noted, academic success. This is Mrs. Lamfort. She is a great resource for really anything, but she also is the head of our academic success, as well as Nick Gilpin. You'll see him around. He almost always has a bow tie on, so you can identify him.
She makes cookies a lot too. Like you can show up over there, she'll have like fresh homemade cookies. She's sewn things for me before. Like she's just amazing. So if you ever just need somebody to kind of talk to, she's a great resource.
Second floor of the library. Yeah, I think it's like Cookie Tuesday, isn't it? Isn't
Or
that,
Wednesday.
is it, or Wednesday?
Wednesday, Tuesday.
What day is it? Tuesday? Okay. So the Academic Success Center does these different things for you, which is helpful. I came up with the acronym, she didn't. But it's testing, right? They do testing services. So if you do happen to need to CLEP that like general or intro to psych, they have that there. And actually there's this great resource if you don't have the prereq, that you can go and they have different resources to prepare you to take the CLEP exam. So if you need that, go reach out to Mrs. Lamfort. She'll help you with that. We don't really have the rescheduling or missed assignments in our program. You'll deal with, that's more undergrad. You'll deal with your instructor. They do provide tutoring, and actually we have tutors for the grad program. So if you need help with APA, go to a tutor. These are some of the tutors. Vicky French is one of our tutors as well. And she'll help with APA. They'll help with APA writing to kind of pull you back in, because many of you may have had MLA. They're close enough to confuse you, but different enough to do it horribly wrong. So if you need assistance on that, or just kind of finding your academic voice in writing, scholarly writing, things like that, preparing for different courses, these are some of our pieces. Accommodations. So the framework that Mrs. Lamfort will always say is the idea of accommodations is from 1 Corinthians 12, that we are all the body of Christ, and that everyone has different gifts, roles, and functions. And so part of accommodations is to allow us to learn, support, and encourage one another across our diversities, across our differences. Because not all of us are hands, not all of us are feet. And so this includes all the diagnosable aspects. So we want you to be successful in our program. You can reach out and get support through accommodations for that to level the playing field. So the phrase she always uses, right, is it's not like undue adjustments to the course. It can't make like massive changes to the course, but we work alongside her. They also have Mango Mondays, where there's different workshops for student success. You can be a part of that. Usually there are snacks provided too, but you can be a part of that. And there's maybe opportunities even through part of your advocacy to be involved in providing and supporting some of what happens with Mango Mondays. So Lisa and I are in strong agreement, which you'll learn in the psychopathology class, of sleep, the importance of sleep. And so we'll see that even when we take the trauma class, right, that a lack of sleep will mimic anxiety, depression, ADHD, and trauma. And so it's this question of, if you're seeing a 8-year-old that's being diagnosed with ADHD, it could be ADHD, but it also could be lack of sleep and technology addiction, right? So we need to make sure that you are modeling what is healthy and effective. Your learning is drastically reduced with just a little bit less sleep every night, right? All it takes, oops, so I have a concurrent meeting right now. All it takes actually to break you is going like 2 or 3 days with insufficient sleep, right? So we don't do that intentionally in the program. We're not trying to break you. We want you to get enough sleep. Okay. And then tied to sleep is getting sufficient exercise, right? So we want holistic. One of the distinct aspects of counseling is we aren't just about getting rid of illness. We want to make you well, right? We want to promote wellness, which requires a holistic lifestyle of sufficient sleep, exercise, nutrition, social relationships, spiritual life, right? We want all of those things to work together. And if you want to learn how to do these in PowerPoint, come see me. All right, so the Academic Success Center is on the 2nd floor. Drop by, they're open all those times. We do have Title IX compliance in our program. So if in the program, well, you want to cover it? Go.
So we take discrimination, especially sexual harassment, very seriously. And so we make it a point, an effort not to discriminate based on gender, race, age, any of those social identities. We want to be very inclusive in this program and as a university. And so we do ask that you all refrain from sexually harassing anyone. For most of you, I know it's going to be very hard, right? Hopefully not, right? We're counselors in training here. I'm hoping that you all are very much aware of what sexual harassment is, but if not, I'm going to tell you about that. But we don't want to be stalking anyone. And, you know, while I can make a joke about it, those who have experienced stalking, it's quite traumatic. And so not only do we not want to engage in that, but if we are aware of that happening, we want to make sure that we're reporting that. We don't want anyone engaging in sexual assault, but also if you are aware of that going on, please report that. You can come to us and we will help you with that process, but ultimately our student life office is the office that we're going to ask you to go to report that. And so any of these behaviors, if you see it going on, and into the next slide, there are so much sexual harassment that happens that does not get reported. And there are so many reasons for that. If you are a victim of any type of sexual harassment or assault, you know, there's a lot of shame, embarrassment, and sometimes fear of not being believed. And so please come to us. We're here to support you. But we don't want anyone to be assaulted or harassed. And if it happens, we also don't want you to suffer in silence. So please report that. Of course, sexual harassment is considered the words you use. So you could make a joke that could be not aimed at someone in particular, but if they take offense to that and of the sexual nature, it can be considered harassment. So we want to be careful of our words. Touching and stalking, as I mentioned, someone can be harassed over social media and certainly through threats. And so let's just be cautious of that. Be aware of what's going on, the conversations that you're having. Of course, you want to grow close to be, you know, and when you're close to people, you know, there are some of my favorite people who can have very sarcastic nature of joking or very dry humor, and that is okay. And there is a line. So again, I trust that many of you are already aware of this and are on the lookout for that, but just a reminder to be cautious and careful of that.
Great, thank you. All right, a critical person to be aware of is Cindy Snell. She is the head librarian, but she has specialized training in addressing psychology and counseling. And so there was a commercial in like the 90s for the Hair Club for Men that said, like, I'm not just the president, I'm also a member. Cindy Snell is not just the head librarian, she's also our research librarian for the counseling program. Right. So if you got that joke, you may need to find someone that helps you with technology in the program. But so she's the person. Her office is actually, if you're walking from here up to our offices, you'll see her in this little, like, it reminds me of like going to the zoo actually, because it's this glass room with like fake trees. So that's like that's her office there. You'll see it. And now you will see that from my perspective when you walk by it. Yeah, please don't feed Mrs. Snell, Dr. Snell.
Be sure that you've scanned this QR code so that we have your attendance here recorded. I do want to welcome back, because you kind of drifted in at different times, but welcome to our students who are returning. We're so glad you survived your break and made it back. And I hope you'll notice there's about 5 or 6 new students here in person. We have another probably 15 online watching the orientation, but we had about 21 students come this time. So it's exciting, but they'll be looking for you. Hopefully you'll make them feel welcome and answer questions that they may have. I wanted to update some of you about the hiring process. We have made an offer to one person. Looks like that will probably happen. We have 2 more positions that we're trying to get the final approval on. So we are aware that the program is growing. And so because of that, we're going to need to continue to hire more faculty. And so I think that will give you more options as you're doing things. So the other thing that for returners to know is that the KCREP virtual site visit has been set for February now. You don't have to worry about accreditation, as Dr. Scott said earlier. It's not like it's not like it's up in the air. We'd have to do something really bad for them not to approve us. They've seen all of our documents, they reviewed everything, but now they do an official visit. But it's actually a virtual visit where they may invite you to answer questions about how your experience has been in the program, that kind of thing. But generally, we're expecting they'll approve us for another 8-year term, which is the way it usually works. But when we ask you to do things that are KCREP related, just understand that's why, because we do have to follow their policies and procedures to maintain our accreditation. There were a few things that Dr. Matthew mentioned. So if you are returning or if you're online returners and you didn't see it, go back and watch the orientation and look at the slides on the difference between online learning and residential learning. Like, we would love for you all to be here in person. It's so fun, but we recognize that some people can't be. But just understand it's going to be a different experience. And so especially you can expect that breaks will typically line up when we have Thanksgiving week and spring break. But other than that, there's usually another period where online students will have a break, but residential you might have a day off here because it's prayer day, but then the next week it'll be a prayer day on another week. So you'll have a different type of schedule. Online learners get that whole week off, but it could vary when that week might be. So pay attention to due dates, pay attention to assignments, look over your stuff from the beginning, kind of schedule out a course. You're always welcome to work ahead. Sometimes the project might not be completely explained, so you might want to check with your professor before you do that. But please look at those slides to recognize there are differences between the 2 programs and things may not always line up the way you want. Online learners get an optional Zoom call, but that is not a requirement. And just like you're not required to be there for that, we are not required to have that every week. And so we'll do our best to add some value to your learning online, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have the same experience. And then there's something else about that. I don't know.
So you're
Never
interested
know.
in that slingshot.
Yeah, Slingshot. So some of you have asked about the books. As part of your tuition, CIU covers something called Slingshot where they provide books to you, but you go into that account and you can opt out, or you can say, I prefer this, or I prefer that, or I want to pick up my books, or I want them mailed to me. A digital copy, which a lot of people don't like digital, whatever they provide. You can upcharge to get something, a different format if you like. If you have an accommodation where you really have to have a physical book because of a documented disability, then go see Lisa Lamford, because then your book is covered. So that will be covered, but otherwise, if it's just a preference, credit hour you're taking. So it doesn't matter how many books are in the class, it's just that you pay an extra $10 for, so if you're taking 3 classes, you're gonna pay an extra $90 to have physical books, which with the cost of books, you're still saving quite a lot. Yeah.
So I got like almost all digital books. Would I just pay $90 and get a physical copy?
Yeah, it's an upgrade in your Slingshot thing.
If they
Is that
have them.
If they have them
Reached out,
available.
they're like, hey, Rob, this next book.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the issue. If the book hasn't been upgraded for a while, they may not have physical copies. And I will say, one of the advantages to a digital book is you can search a word and find something right away for something you're looking for. So as much as I
Great for
hated
the
them,
quizzes.
now I'm loving them. So it takes some adjusting, but I do say there is some real advantage to that, especially when you're taking a test or you're looking for something specific. So try to give it a chance if you can, or look on some of those websites to find something, but just understand, we did not raise tuition when we began to offer that benefit. So we've tried to keep our costs low. We realize that can be a barrier. And the reason that universities, a lot of them went to places like Slingshot is because they found that students, especially undergrad, would go off to school, but they couldn't afford their books. And so they weren't getting the right education. So they said, let's make that part of what we're offering to students. So I think it came from a good place, but as all things, it doesn't always work the way we want. But just understand, if you need a different version, you request that. We also, as professors, have tried to always request that you get a paper copy so that that does help, but sometimes it's just not available. Okay, any other questions about anything that we've talked about today? Well, I've got everybody here together. All right, stand up if you're gonna be expect to graduate in May, so we can see who you are. Who's expecting to graduate in May?
Just teaching.
The rest of them are off to their internship today, right? So it's hard to get off. All right, so if you have